free money. Sounds good, right? Okay, I'm gonna show you on this video paano ba kumuha ng loan for 0% interest. And I'm gonna give you guys a comparison between getting a loan using centralized finance, that's the banks, compared to getting a loan using DeFi or decentralized finance through a lending protocol. Basically, that's the bank in Web3. At pag-uusapan din natin dito yung risk for using banks or CeFi and also for using lending protocols in DeFi. And at the end of the video, you're gonna see why I chose going with a lending protocol on DeFi as compared to the bank and why DeFi and Web3 is superior compared to the current legacy financial system. Okay, umpisa na natin to. Let's say, for example, that you want to borrow $20,000, which is approximately 1.12 million pesos. And we're going to use dollars para lang masimplify natin yung comparison and yung computation. Now, you have two options. You're either gonna get a loan with the bank or you're gonna get a loan with a lending protocol on DeFi. So let's compare the two. First, let's talk about collateral. Both banks and the lending protocol will require collateral. At yung collateral amount is roughly about the same. You can usually borrow about 50 to 80% of your collateral, whether it's through the bank or using the lending protocol on DeFi. The difference is in the collateral you use. Para sa mga bangko, ang hinihingi nilang collateral usually are assets such as real estate. For DeFi naman, ang ginagamit natin collateral dito is our crypto assets such as Bitcoin or Ethereum. Now, let's talk about the ease of borrowing. Alam naman natin gaano kahirap umutang sa bangko. Yung dami ng mga papeles na pipirmahan mo at fill-upan mo. Tapos, check pa nila yung credit rating, check pa nila income mo, ability to pay, and then it takes more than a week to get an approval for that loan that you need. Plus, ang dami pang mga fees na kailangan bayaran on top of the interest you're paying for that loan. Compared to DeFi, if you want to get a loan, no more checks, no more applications, walang submission of income statements, and it takes less than 1 minute to get your loan. And the best part is you're not paying an exorbitant amount of fees to get that loan. You're just gonna pay the transaction fee, which is normally just a couple of dollars lang. Kaya getting a loan on DeFi is easy, cheap, instant, and anonymous. Ngayon, tignan naman natin yung payment terms between the two. Sa bangko, normally they have a fixed term. And because of that, it's very rigid. Compared naman sa lending protocol on DeFi, it's completely flexible. You can pay after 1 day, 1 month. You can make monthly payments. You can make daily payments. You don't even have to pay for an entire year if you don't want to. And you can pay anytime you want. Next, let's talk about interest rate. For local banks, right now, ang interest rate natin is between 6 to 8%. And the great thing about this is that it's fixed for the entire duration of the loan. Now, for DeFi naman, the interest rate is floating. Ibig sabihin nun that it varies on a day-to-day basis. But if you look at the average on a 1-year interest rate for the USDT, its average borrow rate is about 4.47%, which is less than the banks. Pero ang nabanggit ko pa lang sa inyo right now is the borrow rate for USDT. Hindi ko pa binanggit yung net borrow rate and how you can get 0% interest for the money you borrowed. So here's how you can borrow money at 0% interest. In other words, free money. Kasi if you borrow $20,000, you need to be over-collateralized. Gaano karami dapat yung ilalagay mong collateral para makairam ka ng $20,000? You can put as little as $30,000 if you want. Pero ang problema lang nun, dahil crypto assets yung ginagamit mong collateral, the price fluctuates. At baka maliquidate ka pa para mabayaran yung utang mo pag kinulang na yung collateral mo. That's why it's better to over-collateralize. Now, what I would recommend and what I'm planning to do is if I'm going to borrow $20,000, I'm going to make sure my collateral is at least 2.5 times to 3 times the money I borrow. So in this case, because I'm borrowing $20,000, I would want to have at least $60,000 as collateral. Now, because the price of Ethereum is around $3,700, I'm going to put 18 Ethers, which is about $66,000 for my collateral. Now, why am I over-collateralizing my loan that much? Ginagawa ko to para maiwasan natin yung liquidation. Kasi nga, di ba, gumagalaw ang presyo ng Ethereum. So, I'm assuming that even if the price of Ethereum drops to $1,800 per Ethereum, meron pa rin akong over $32,000 as collateral. So walang chance maliliquidate ako. As a matter of fact, pag tinignan mo nga dito, ang aking liquidation price would be just under $1,400 per Ethereum. Now, do I think it's still gonna go down to that price? Most likely not. So I feel safe with that number. But in case it does, all you have to do is add more collateral. And the lending platform we're gonna be using is aave.com. And you can see here that the current borrow rate for USDT is at 4.64%. But here's the kicker. When you deposit Ethereum into the lending protocol, in this case Aave, you'll get an interest rate for supplying Ethereum to the protocol of over 3%. Now, I'm sure nakikita mo na where I'm going with this, right? You're earning interest on your collateral. Now, let's be really conservative here. What I'm going to do is show you guys the 1-year average yield or interest you're going to make with the Ethereum you supply as collateral. In this case, if you look at it for 1 year, the average is 1.89%. Just to make the computation easier, let's just round it up to 2%. Ngayon, tignan naman natin yung borrow rate ng USDT natin at ano ba yung average niya for 1 year. And you're gonna see here that in 1 year, it averages 4.47%. Pero again, let's just round it up to 5% para lang mas mabilis i-compute. So that means you're gonna pay 5% annually for the $20,000 you borrow. That's $1,000 a year na babayaran mo on interest. But because the Ethereum you supplied to the lending protocol, which is priced at about $3,700 per Ether, which is also your collateral, is earning 2%. If we put 18 Ether valued at $3,700 per Ether, lumalabas dito that our collateral is at $66,000. And 2% of that is $1,332 a year. Yan yung kinikita mo from your collateral. So if you minus your cost of borrowing to the yield you're making from your collateral, you're actually still earning $332 and you have an extra $20,000 that you borrowed using your assets. In other words, free money. Or another way to look at it is you have a negative borrow rate of minus 1.66%. It means you're making 1.66% annually pa. Ang galing, di ba? And in this way, intact yung iyong assets, hindi mo siya nagagalaw. And remember, with Ethereum, much like Bitcoin, the value of that asset actually appreciates over time. So the longer you hold on to the loan, you will end up paying for that loan with the price appreciation of Ethereum. And the beauty of this free money is this. You don't have to pay it monthly if you don't want. You can pay it weekly. You don't have to. You don't even have to pay for it for several years if you don't want to. Kaya kung biglang nawalan ka ng trabaho and you can't afford to pay for it, you can just wait it out. You're not paying interest anyway. Now, what are the possible risks of banks and also of lending protocols on DeFi? First, let's talk about the banks. A possible risk in banks is always the hacking. Kasi nga, because it's centralized, it's so easy to hack a bank server. Versus DeFi, which is going to be much harder to hack because you would have to go through the entire decentralized network para ma-hack mo yung DeFi servers. But the advantage of banks is that it has insurance. So in case ma-hack yung account mo or nagkaroon ng bank run and you have deposits there, you're insured up to 1 million pesos. With DeFi, walang insurance. Kung mawala yung pera mo, wala na siya. Now, if you deposit your money or your asset with a bank as compared to depositing it on a lending protocol on DeFi like Aave, what are the chances na mawawala yung pera mo? Well, you have to look at the liquidity of the bank and of the lending protocol. At titignan mo rin magkano yung total value na dineposit sa banko and in the lending protocol. That's called the total value locked. And if you look at the top 3 banks in the Philippines, the total value of the deposits is roughly around 40 billion up to $70 billion. Now let's look at the total value locked in Aave on the Ethereum network. If you look at it here, the total value locked and the total market size is $47 billion, just as big as the top 3 banks in the Philippines. But here's the main difference. In the legacy financial system, yung mga banko, they're not required to have the money in their reserves. As a matter of fact, they're only required to keep 5% of the total deposit in their reserve. Ibig sabihin no, 95% of the money is not in the bank. That's called fractional reserves. So that also means that banks are not really that liquid. If a significant number of depositors decide to withdraw their money immediately, magkakaroon ng bank run. as compared to Aave, where the $47 billion is literally in the lending protocol locked in there. And you have full custody of it. Unlike the banks, they have custody of your money. In other words, wala kang control sa pera mo. Subukan mo mag-withdraw over 500,000 pesos or $10,000. Marami ng tanong yan kung para saan, bakit mo i-withdraw at hindi nila agad-agad mabibigay siguro sa yung perang yon. As compared to Aave, the lending protocol on DeFi, you can withdraw the money anytime, instantly, with no questions asked. And because it's not fractional, the entire money is literally there. And the fact that you have self-custody, that means you have full control of your money. Now, I'm sure may iba sa inyo may concern, paano kung biglang nawala yung Aave? What happens to my money? Will I lose access? No, you won't. Because everything is on a smart contract on the Ethereum network. Ang ibig sabihin nun, you can literally go to the blockchain using your wallet, access it, and be able to withdraw your money, less the money you borrowed, of course. And the website of Aave is literally just a front end to make things easier. Pero pag nawala yun, as long as the Ethereum network is around, you can access it and withdraw it at any time. And that's how you get money for free or money at 0% interest. So let's do a quick recap on why it's better to borrow on DeFi. So the platform we're using is aave.com, and the reason we're using Aave is because it has a good track record, it has a high total value locked of over $47 billion, and you have full custody of your money, plus they pay you interest on your collateral, and in effect giving you a 0% borrow rate to even a negative borrow rate. And because it's completely flexible, you're not stuck to monthly payments and there's no pressure for you and you only pay when you can and when you want. And even if you pay early, there are no penalties by doing so. Okay, ano tingin nyo? Do you like what you hear? Or do you still have your concerns and doubts? Let me know what you guys think at isulat nyo lahat yan sa comment section sa ibaba. And if you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and i-click mo yung notification bell na yan para ma-notify ka of more videos like this one. And please remember that this is not financial advice. This is not even educational. I'm just sharing with you what I'm going to do, and make sure to do your own research. Salamat sa inyo lahat. Ito si Christian. I'll see you guys on my next video.